Hello and good day. My name again is Teacher JV, and today we're already in our chapter 18 for our anatomy and physiology. And today we're going to talk about your urinary system. Okay, and let's start with this one. So, in urinary system, it is the major excretory system of our body. And we're going to start by talking about the functions of your urinary system. So the first one is all about the excretion. Okay. Now, in excretion, what is happening here is the kidneys will filter the blood in our system, and the waste products will be separated from the blood, and then it will be removed through urination, or what we term in medical as micturition. Okay, so that is all about your excretion. The second one is the blood volume and the blood pressure control. Now, again, most of the body fluids is being controlled by the kidneys, and they can produce large or small fluid volume depending on the fluid intake or the fluid level of human being. Okay, therefore, they can have higher blood volume, lower blood pressure, or higher blood pressure. Okay. Now, how about your pH regulation? In here, to help regulate the pH of the body, the kidney will excrete variable amount of hydrogen so that the pH will be maintained and it is suitable for our system. The fourth one is all about the concentration of solutes. Okay, now the regulation of the solutes are being done by the kidney as well as the um, sodium, chloride, potassium, calcium, and others. Now, in vitamin D production, the calcium is being controlled by the kidney as well, and by regulating the synthesis of vitamin D, in which sunlight is very essential. And the last one, your red blood cell here on number six. What is happening here is the kidney secretes the hormones, your EPO, your erythropoietin, which will regulate the synthesis of RBC in where again? You remember in the muscular system or your skeletal system, it's in your bone marrow. Okay, so I hope all of the functions are understood so that we can move on here into our components of the urinary system. So as you can see here in our illustration, we have our left and our right kidneys here. We also have two sets of ureter coming from the left and the right kidney, and then they're going to meet here. We have one urinary bladder, and eventually the one that we're going to use to excrete the body waste of our body is your urethra. Okay, so again, left and right kidney, ureters. We also have your urinary bladder and your urethra. Okay, and here, as you can see, this is our kidneys. The shape and the size, it looks like a bean, right? So it is bean shape. The weight of this one is approximately 5 ounces. Okay, so just like a bar of soap or the size of your fist. Now, the location of this one, the location of our kidneys, they are on the 12th thoracic and 3rd lumbar vertebra. Okay. And here, let's take a closer look on the kidneys that we have in our body. And as you can see, this one is the dissected part of the kidney. As you can see here, so we have your renal capsule. So you can see here, renal capsule is like the skin. It's like a membrane. It is a connective tissue around each kidney. So they protect and they also act as barriers. Okay, so that is your renal capsule here. Now, how about the next one, which is your renal cortex? So next to your renal capsule here, this one, as you can see, this is your cortex. This is the outer portion. While here, your medulla, this one, this is the inner portion. Okay, Now moving on here, as you can see on this part, your hilum, it is like indentation. Okay, as you can see here, this part, this is your hilum. This is um, this part contains your renal artery, as you can see here, and also the blue one, your renal vein, and also some nerves on this part. And as you can see in the hilum, you can see your ureter. Okay, so on this part, that is your hilum. How about your renal sinus going to the opposite side? This one, your renal sinus here. So as you can see, it's like a sac. It's like a hollow space. Okay, so this one, they contain your renal pelvis and blood vessels as well as some fats. Okay, while here, your renal pyramid, as you can see on this one. So your renal pyramid, they are the junction between your renal cortex and your medulla. Okay, and as you can see here on this part, this is what we call your calyx. So your calyx, they are on the tip of your renal pyramid. So as you can see here, one here, second here, and the rest. Okay, so on top of the pyramid, on top of this one, that is what we call your calyx. Okay, I hope you are getting clear here. So aside from that, we also have your renal pelvis. So you can see here on this one, your renal pelvis, this is where the calyces, which is this one, they will join as one into a narrow area to form your your ureter here. Okay, so that is your renal pelvis. So these are your calyces. So they're like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that, 5 calyces, and then they will unite and to form a they will form a narrow area here to have your renal pelvis. And lastly, your ureter. Here, this is where exits the kidney and connects to your urinary bladder. Okay, so as you can see, this is also another illustration of the actual kidney being dissected. Okay, now let's move on here. So this is the nephron. So what are your nephron? What is this? This is the functional unit of the kidneys. Okay, and we have like over 1 million of nephrons in our kidney. Okay, so let's start discussing the parts. So as we can see here, we have here your renal corpuscle. So this one, this is a renal corpuscle that is dissected. So if it's not dissected, it will look like this one. Okay, so what encapsulates here is your Bowman capsule and your glomerulus. Okay, so inside your renal corpuscle, we have your Bowman capsule and your glomerulus. Okay, so as you can see here, this one, your Bowman capsule, which is here on the edge part. Your Bowman capsule, this is the enlarged end of the nephron. And this one, it will open to your proximal convoluted tubule, or your PCT. Okay, now in this part, it contains your photocytes. They are specialized cells around your glomerular capillaries. Okay, and another structure inside your renal corpuscle here, that is your glomerulus. So glomerulus contains capillaries wrapped around it, as you can see here. Okay, so what's inside again your renal corpuscle? Your Bowman capsule and your glomerulus. Okay, now on this part, on your Bowman capsule, this is where the blood is being filtered. Now, after the blood is being filtered, it will now enter here. The one that's being filtered are your filtrates. Okay, so your filtrates will pass first on your proximal convoluted tubule. Okay, so after passing through here, it will now go on this part. This is your loop of Henle. In loop of Henle, we have your ascending, we also have your descending loops. Okay, which usually here water and solutes pass through the wall through your diffusion. Okay, so after the loop of Henle, it will now go on this part, which is your distal convoluted tubule. This is the structure between the loop of Henle and your collecting ducts. So here it is proximal. It's because it is near your renal corpuscle. Your distal, it's because it's a bit distant to your renal corpuscle. Okay, let's have a quick recap. So inside your renal corpuscle, we have your Bowman capsule. It is where the blood is being filtered. Then the filtrate will pass through first in your proximal convoluted tubule down to your loop of Henle, which has your ascending and descending, and then going to your distal convoluted, and lastly, it will go to your collecting ducts here. Okay, now the collecting ducts, it will empty into your calyces. As you can see here on this part, it will empty here and then carry fluid from cortex through your medulla. And then it will now go for your excretion. Okay, so how the flow of the filtrate through your nephron again. So we have first your renal corpuscle, then it will go to your proximal tubule. Now it will go to your loop of Henle. The first one is the descending loop of Henle. Then it will go to the ascending loop of Henle. Next is to your distal convoluted tubule, after which it will now go to your collecting duct, to your calyces or your calyx, and then it will now go down to your renal pelvis, and then it will go to your ureter, then from ureter to your urinary bladder, and then it will now go to your urethra. Okay, I hope this one is clear. So how about this one? How about the blood flow through your kidney? Okay, so we have illustration here again. So as you can see here, the blood will enter to your renal artery here. So once the blood entered to your renal artery, it will travel here on your inner lobar artery. So the first inner lobar artery, it will now go to your arcuate artery, and then another here part to your inner lobar artery. Okay, once it enters your interlobar artery, again, it will now go here on this part. It is near your Bowman capsule. Okay, so this one, this fifth one, this is what we call your afferent arteriole. Your afferent arteriole supplies blood to your glomerulus for filtration. Okay, so your afferent here, it will now enter to your glomerulus, in which they have network of capillaries, right? So after which, it will now travel here to number 7, your efferent. Efferent arteriole, they transport the filtered blood away from your glomerulus. Okay, so after the blood is being filtered in your glomerulus, it will now move, or it will pass through your efferent away from your glomerulus. So again, it will travel here on this, your peritubular capillaries, as you can see here. Aside from that, in number 8, it will now travel here into your vasa recta. Okay, after traveling to vasa recta, it will now go to your number 10. So the capillaries is a network where the artery and the vein met. So after going through your artery, it will now pass through your vein, and the first vein here is your arcuate vein. So you can see here. So after entering your arcuate vein, it will now go pass through first. I'm sorry. It will now pass through first your inner lobar vein. After inner lobar vein, it will now go to your arcuate vein, and then to your inner lobar vein again. Okay, so that's how the blood flow in our kidney. Okay, and during this process, we have here the urine formation. How's the urine is um, being transformed or being produced. So the first one here, we have the filtration. So as you can see here, it says follow the blue arrow on this one. So filtration is the movement of materials across the filtration membrane to the Bowman capsule to form your filtrate. Now here's the filtrate. Um, the filtrate will have first your um, it will travel here, and then solutes are reabsorbed. So the solutes here are being reabsorbed on this part across the wall of the nephron in the interstitial fluid by transport processes. Okay, what are these transport processes? Your active transport and your co-transport. Now the water is being reabsorbed across the wall of the nephron by the process of osmosis. Now, the water and the solute pass from the interstitial fluid into your peritubular capillaries. Now, the solutes are secreted again here across the wall of the nephron through or into the filtrate. That is your tubular secretion. Okay. So let's have a quick recap here. Urine formation, filtration, movement of water ions, small molecules through filtration membrane in the Bowman's capsule. 19% of plasma becomes filtrate. 180 liters of filtrate are produced by the nephron each day, 1% of which of the filtrate, or approximately 1.8 liter, become urine. Rest is being reabsorbed by our body. Okay, now next, only small molecules are able to pass through filtration membranes. Formation of filtrate depends on filtration pressure. While filtration pressure forces fluid across your filtration membrane, and filtration pressure is influenced by our blood pressure. Okay, so we can see here another illustration. This is the filtration process. So please read this one on your book. Your glomerular capillary pressure, the blood pressure within the glomerulus, moves the fluid from the blood into your Bowman's capsule. Now, the next step is the capsular pressure. The pressure inside the Bowman capsule moves fluid from the capsule into the blood. The colloid osmotic pressure produced by the concentration of blood proteins moves fluid from the Bowman's capsule into the blood by osmosis. And filtration pressure is equal to the glomerular capillary pressure minus the capsular and the colloid osmotic pressure. Okay, again, this part is the filtration pressure. Well, here, this is the urine concentrating mechanism. I want you to read this part on your book. It will tell you like how many is being absorbed, how many is being reabsorbed, how many is being excreted, what are the solutes that are being retained, what are the solutes that are being excreted, something like that. Okay. Now moving on here, 99% of the filtrate is reabsorbed and re-enters our circulation. The proximal tubule is primarily the site for reabsorption of solute and water. Please remember this one. The proximal tubule is the primary site for reabsorption of solutes and water, while the descending loop of Henle concentrates on the filtrate. Reabsorption of water and solutes from the distal tubule and collecting duct is controlled by hormones, in which we're going to talk later on. Okay, illustration here. This is the reabsorption in the proximal convoluted tubule. So as you can see here, the number one said the solute molecules such as amino acids, your glucose, fructose, as well as sodium ions, potassium ions, calcium ions, bicarbonate and chloride are reabsorbed by active transport and co-transport out of the proximal convoluted tubule by the epithelial cells. Now, the solute plus 65% of the filtrate volume are reabsorbed from the proximal convoluted tubule and enter into your peritubular capillary, where water moves by osmosis out of your proximal convoluted tubule. Okay? And here on this part, this is your reabsorption on the loop of Henle. And the next one here, this is the reabsorption in the loop of Henle, the thick segment of the ascending limbs. And here, this part, this is the reabsorption in the distal convoluted tubule as well as your collecting duct. Okay, so here on this part, the water moves by osmosis from distal convoluted going to your collecting ducts, while the sodium ions move by active transport and chloride moves by co-transport out of the distal convoluted tubule and collecting ducts. Now, they reabsorb water and solute enters the peritubular capillaries and your vasa recta. Okay, now moving on here, it says that urine production secretion, water, small ions, byproducts of metabolisms, drugs, urea are found in urine. Okay, now moving on here, other parts of the urinary system, we have your ureters, the urinary bladder, and your urethra. A while ago, we already talked about your kidney, what are inside your kidney. So from the parts, it will now move to your here, and on this one, to the going down to your ureter. Okay, so you can see here ureter, and this is the dissected part, your microscopic part of your ureter. So these are small tubes that carry urine from the renal pelvis of the kidney going to our bladder or the urinary bladder. Okay, so on this one, the urine will be collected in ureter down to your urinary bladder. So urinary bladder is actually already in the pelvic cavity of our body, and it can store urine. It can hold a few ml, and the maximum of this one is 1000 ml. Okay, after which you really need to micturate. Okay, and if you're going to micturate down your urinary bladder, here we have your urethra. Okay, your urethra is the tube that exits the bladder, and the urine from the urinary bladder to the outside of our body. Okay, a while ago we mentioned that the regulation of urine concentration and volume is being affected or influenced by the three hormonal mechanisms, or it is being influenced by some hormones. And what are these hormones? Your renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system. We also have your antidiuretic hormone and your atrial natriuretic hormone. Okay, let's start here first. So what is happening here if the body detected that we are having a low blood pressure or maybe high blood pressure, what is happening here is the kidney secretes your renin. Okay, here the kidney will secrete the renin if the body detected that we have decreased blood pressure. So our body will actually have some how will we term this one, compensatory mechanism that will do, okay, to help our body act normal. So from decreased BP, the kidney will secrete the renin. Okay, so once the renin is being secreted, it will act into your angiotensinogen. Okay, on this one. Now, if the renin acted in your angiotensinogen, it will form your angiotensin 1. Okay, after acting on your angiotensinogen, it will now go, or it will produce your angiotensin 1. Okay, now with the aid of your ACE inhibitor, or your angiotensin converting enzyme, it will convert the angiotensinogen 1 to your angiotensinogen 2. Okay, now this angiotensin 2 will cause vasoconstriction. It will constrict. Okay, now what will happen to that as well is that the aldosterone increase the angiotensin 2 will act on our adrenal cortex. Once it acted on the adrenal cortex, it will release aldosterone. Okay, now the aldosterone increases the rate of activity transport of the sodium ion in the distal tubule and the collecting ducts. It will result to water volume decrease. Okay, so it will reabsorb in increase of your blood pressure. Okay, so this is your aldosterone and regulation of the sodium and water in your extracellular fluid. Well, this part here, we have your antidiuretic hormone mechanism. So a while ago, the hormone is from the kidney. This time, it is from your posterior pituitary gland. Okay. Now, your ADH or your antidiuretic hormone is secreted by posterior pituitary gland. Now, the ADH will now act on kidney and they absorb more water, decreasing the urine volume. Now, the result is maintained blood volume as well as your blood pressure. How about the other hormone, your ANH? Okay, your ANH or your atrial natriuretic hormone is coming from your heart. Okay, it is secreted from cardiac muscle to right atrium of the heart when the blood pressure increases. Now, your ANH acts on kidney to decrease sodium reabsorption, and the sodium ions remain in nephron to become urine. It will now increase the loss in sodium and water, reduce blood volume, as well as reduce blood pressure. Okay, I hope this one is clear. Let's just have a quick recap again here in your aldosterone. In the aldosterone here, oh, I'm sorry, this is your renin. The renin that is being secreted by the kidney, it will act on your angiotensinogen to produce your angiotensin 1, and your ACE inhibitor, your angiotensin converting enzyme, converts angiotensin 1 to your angiotensin 2. Your angiotensin 2 will cause vasoconstriction, and it will act on your adrenal cortex to release aldosterone, and aldosterone increases the rate of active transport of the sodium in the distal tubule and collecting duct, and the volume of water in urine decreases. Okay, how about here again? Another hormone, but this time coming from your posterior pituitary gland, your antidiuretic hormone. It will act on the kidney and they absorb more water. It will now decrease the urine volume, and the result is maintained blood volume and blood pressure. And last one here, your ANH, your atrial natriuretic hormone, is being secreted from the cardiac muscle of your right atrium of the heart when the blood pressure is actually increasing. Now it will act on your kidney to decrease the sodium reabsorption, and the sodium ions remain in the nephron to become urine and increase loss of sodium and water. And with this loss of sodium in water in our body, it will actually reduce your blood volume, and it will now stabilize the blood pressure. Okay, I hope this one is clear. This part, please read this one on your book, read them properly. And we have here, this is the micturition reflex. Micturition is urination activated by the stretch of the urinary wall. Now, the action potential are conducted from bladder to spinal cord through the pelvis, through your pelvic nerves. Now, parasympathetic action potentials cause the bladder to actually contract. Now, stretching of the bladder stimulates the sensory neuron to inform that the brain, uh, and the person that we need actually to pee, or we need to urinate, or we need to micturate. Okay. Now, how about here? This one, we have the body fluid compartments. You will learn more of this one on your medical surgical nursing, but we have your intracellular fluid and your extracellular fluid. Of course, intra means internal or inside, extra means on the outside. Just learn this one, this concept on your book, please. Okay, as you can see here, we have the appropriate volume of body compartments. So we have in the infant, we have 75 total body weight. In the ICF, we have 45, plasma is 4. Your ECF, we have 26, a total of 30. Adult, these are the numbers, total of 20. Adult female, total of 15. Okay. Now we have here your thirst regulation. We also have the ion concentration regulation. So what are this one? So you can see here, the thirst regulation, water intake is actually controlled by the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is the thirst center of the human being. If we are feeling thirsty, your hypothalamus will actually act. Okay. Now, the concentration of the blood increases the thirst center, um, responding by initiating the sensation of thirst. So we have the feeling of being thirsty. So we need to drink water. Okay. Now, once our hypothalamus dictated that our body or our system needs water, and we will drink water. When water is consumed, concentration of blood decreases and the sensation of thirst will actually decrease as well. Okay. Well, the next one here, we have your buffers, regulation of the acid-base balance. You will learn more of this one as well on your biochemistry. The buffers are the chemical resist change in the pH of a solution, and buffers in body contain salts of weak acids or bases that combine with your hydrogen ion. The three classes of buffers, we have the protein, the phosphate buffer, and your bicarbonate buffer. Okay. Your respiratory system here, on the other hand, they respond rapidly to change the pH, increase the respiratory rate. So that is the compensatory mechanism as well, increasing the respiratory rate to raise the pH due to the rate of the carbon dioxide elimination being increased. Now, the reduced respiratory rate reduced the pH due to rate of carbon dioxide elimination being reduced. Okay. While your kidneys here, the nephrons secrete the hydrogen ions into the urine and directly regulate the pH of the body fluids. And more hydrogen ion if pH is decreasing, and less hydrogen ions if the pH is increasing. So it is being controlled by your kidney. So the body, if the body detected that there are more pH, or there are more hydrogen ion in the pH, it will decrease in production, and vice versa. So this one, please read this on your book as well. And we also have the acidosis in the alkalosis. Acidosis occurs when the pH of blood falls below 7.35. So that is actually our normal range is 7.35 to 7.45. So beyond your 7.45, that is already your alkalosis. Below your 7.35, that is your acidosis. Okay, we have two types. We have your respiratory acidosis and metabolic acidosis. I know you already tackled this one in your biochemistry because I taught this one before in the other school. How are you going to check if the body is actually having respiratory acidosis and the metabolic acidosis by knowing the acid, the bicarbonate, the oxygen level, the PaCO2, something like that. You've learned all these things, all this stuff in your biochemistry as well. Okay, and then please read again all the necessary or all the table that actually having all the diseases, or how will I term this one, the representative diseases and disorder of your urinary system. Okay, and that's it for today. I hope you learn a lot, and please continue learning by reading your book, going to your Connect, and watching supplementary videos so that we can really understood this topic. So again, thank you and stay awesome.